This is our presentation on the cave painting called Bison. Here's the actual picture from the Gombrich book. You can see here there's two bison, another one over here, painted on the cave wall. So this is a representation of what men and women look like around the time that this painting was created. And the artist of the painting is unknown, as were many artists who painted hundreds of thousands of years ago, since titling work wasn't as important as it is today. However, we can conclude that it must have been painted by those who we commonly call cavemen, which is an archetype, of course, for Neanderthals. This painting was created around the end of the Paleolithic, or perhaps beginning of Mesolithic era in history, which means that glaciers were melting, water was rising, the hunt for food was on, and now that the climate was warming up. There were many different Neanderthal tribes living in Europe at the time, and the ones who painted this bison specifically were in Spain or around Spain, where the cave of that painting is located. I mentioned that this piece was likely a collective because since they lived in tribes, there were about 12 to 30 people that they traveled with. And as you'll see later in a picture of the cave, there are multiple sort of large bison painted around, so it's possible that it was other men or women making these paintings as well. And as for who this painting was for, at least to our knowledge, these paintings weren't being sold or commissioned. There weren't patrons at the time, and no institutions sought after them until many, many, many years later. They're simply made for magical or spiritual reasons, which will be explained later. Next, we have the subject of the painting, which is an actual bison. It's easy to tell what the animal is based on a few similar features. First, there's the incorporation of a hump that you can see clearly both on a picture of a real and the painting. Other animals that they hunted include elk, oxen, and even mammoths, based on the bones that they've been found in their caves, but none of them look as closely as related. Next, there's the rounded belly and the straightened legs, short straightened legs that you can see represented here too. It was obvious that they saw these bison on a daily basis to be able to conjure up such an accurate portrayal of them. And finally, the significance of the subject is that bison were the main food source for them. They offered a lot of meat as well as their fur, and their hide was used for clothing or for warmth or to build anything. It was the animal that they needed that was most abundant enough, and they wouldn't run out like they would with oxen or even more sparse animals like woolly mammoths.
The work was executed around 15,000 to 10,000 BC, which makes it fall in the Paleolithic era. It's historically significant because the people of that time used stone tools to capture their prey. According to Gombrich, these were the men of the Ice Age. The painting itself has heavy religious and spiritual significance. Its medium is made from crushed minerals that are diluted to make a pigmented paste that they use to apply to the walls. And according to Gombrich, since it was in the stone era, he says, gradually the rude implements of stone and bone found in these regions made it increasingly certain that these pictures of bison were painted by men who hunted this game and therefore knew it so very well. It also has heavy religious significance because they believed that by painting it, they were able to capture the animal and they would gain the powers to capture said animal. According to Gombrich, it says that these primitive hunters thought that if they made a picture of their prey and perhaps belabored it with their spears or stone axes, the animals would also succumb to their power.
All right, so some size information. The Altamira Cave itself is a series of passages that add up to about 720 meters, which in feet is about 2,400 feet. Each individual passage is about 2 to 6 meters in height, which is 7 to 20 feet. And the width, which is the biggest part of each passage, is about 6 to 20 meters, which is 20 to 65 feet. Now, the actual subjects in the Altamira cave that include bison, deer, boar, and horses were painted in lifelike scale, so pretty close to the actual size of the animals themselves. So to give you an idea, bison is roughly 5 to 6 feet tall and 7 to 12 feet long, so pretty big. And here you can actually see an example of observers looking at the painting. You can notice how big they are relative to the observers themselves, so pretty large. The location of this cave is at the top of a smooth limestone hill near the historic town of Santillana del Mar. This town is situated in the northern province of Spain, known as Cantabria. The cave paintings were most probably made by people of a Magdalenian culture. And an interesting part about that is that they used tools to create their artistic creations rather than just their hands. Inhabitants of them were during the Paleolithic era, so 1500 to 15,000 to 10,000 BC. The first audience was a local and wealthy individual named Marcelino Sanz de Satola and his 7-year-old daughter that initiated the excavation. Another archaeologist from the University of Madrid named Juan Villanova y Piera predicted its Paleolithic origin, but 2 French specialists named Gabriel de Mortier and Émile Cardiac rejected these 2 interpretations because of its artistic quality. This controversy wasn't settled until 1902, when the scientific community found similar sites of Paleolithic origin, and they agreed on the Spanish interpretation. Its purpose is strongly tied to the people that hunted game for their existence during the time. They depicted the animals in profile with pretty detailed accuracy. So it's almost religious in nature, as if it was sacred to these people that lived off the land, in tribute to their animal sustenance. Some more on the purpose. So like I said, mostly about hunting in the Paleolithic era, but it's interesting that they only just depicted specific game while there were lots of other prey out there. That's about it.
Finally, we just have a works cited page just so you can see where we sort of, as well as from the Gombrich book, derived some of our information, as well as the pictures that I used in this PowerPoint. And that's it.